Are you struggling with ideas for story content that your followers will respond to? Do you know that the stories affect the Instagram algorithm? And it can be in a good way, so you want to pay attention. Would you love to be able to be able to drive engagement and build up community using stories? Well, if any of those answers were yes, then today's show is for you. Hello, I am Jeff C. of Manly Pinterest Tips, and I'm here with Kristen Dolan, content marketer at Tailwind, and our special guest, Chloe Alysse of the style blog, Chloe and Clothes. So this is going to be a fun one, everybody. So we are so happy to have you on with us today. And would you do us a favor and light up the love below us and let people know that you're excited to be here? And as always, we want you to ask questions so we can answer them during today's show. So make sure you drop those down below, and we'll try to bring those up on screen during the show today and try to provide as much value as we can. And also, as you know, we always do the hashtag Tailwind Tip. So as we're going along today and you hear something that's just super valuable, make sure you put hashtag Tailwind Tip and then that whatever we said that was so amazing. Or maybe you have your own Tailwind Tip. That would be even better. Extra points for that. And you could be entered to win this Tailwind selfie light. You can only find them here at Tailwind. They're amazing. They're awesome. They even make me look good. So you want to make sure to do that. Hashtag Tailwind Tip of the show today. Kristen, so good to see you. You've been running up and down stairs. We're glad that you made it safely. Introduce our guest today. I'm excited. I've heard so much.
Well, I'll let Chloe talk a little bit about herself, but I do want to start off by saying that she is the owner of a very successful style blog, and she's also a Tailwind team member. She is on our customer success team, and awesome. She came to us earlier this year, and she's been just an amazing resource and a great value add to our team because she really understands what our members have gone through trying to build that success and that engagement, and she has a ton of amazing insights to share. So, Chloe, I'll let you talk a little bit about yourself and your blog and kind of how that looks.
Thank you so much, Kristen. You're so sweet. So I started my style blog last summer, and end of last summer, and it started as an experiment for me learning about ethical and sustainable fashion and trying to shop differently, learn more about the companies that I was purchasing from, and it's really grown into something where I still share my style tips, but also talk about all sorts of things. So it's more of a lifestyle blog now, but I have loved seeing how that grew over the last year, and I've learned so much. And I've also loved my time on the Tailwind team. So it's awesome to be here and to be combining both of my passions together.
Awesome. Well, I want to do some shout outs while we're here for some people who are joining us. I want to give a shout out to, let me pull her up real quick. I want to say, hey, there is from Vegas. We've got Kristen. We've got Bobby and Melanie from Colorado Springs are here with us. We've got Jessica from New Jersey. So very cool to see all these people with us today. And Texas. Awesome. Texas is representing. That is from Danielle. Thanks, Danielle, for that. That is very, very cool that we have all these people here. And make sure as we're going along, don't forget the hashtag Tailwind Tip as we drop some nuggets of information and ask your questions because we are here for you. So let's get started on this story stuff. Now, stories is in the news. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody wants to do them and do them well. But it can be a little scary because it's kind of, there is kind of a learning curve to stories. So why don't you take us through all that and get us started, Kristen?
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of mentioned there's a learning curve with stories, and a lot of people are a little intimidated by the idea of them at first. I do want to preface this by saying that no, if you do not like being on camera, do not like recording yourself talking, you don't have to do that in stories. That's not all they are. But stories are actually a great help to the algorithm. And so if you've kind of noticed recently that maybe your engagement is a little harder to come by, your reach isn't as active on your feed, you can actually boost your appearance and your visibility in your followers' feeds and in search streams by using stories. They have a really positive impact on the algorithm. So whenever your viewers are looking at your stories, they're tapping on those stickers and they're interacting with them, it's sending a signal to the algorithm that your content is interesting to viewers and to other accounts at large. So it improves your ranking in the feed. You're more likely to get your posts from your feed to appear higher in user feeds as they're scrolling down, or in those search traffic on different hashtags, things like that. You're more likely to rank higher, maybe even grab a top post. And then finally, at the top of your home screen, where you see everybody's stories lined up, the more viewers and interaction and engagement you get on your stories, the higher up it'll appear. So closer to the top, your stories will appear first for users, or towards the top, because they interact with your content. It's sending that signal to the algorithm that they like your content, they want to see more of it. And so it'll rank higher and higher, which is really, really useful for grabbing that engagement and really driving traffic. And so for the show structure, I was talking to Chloe about all of her insights, figuring out how to organize this, maybe make the best impact and takeaways for our audience where stories are concerned. And so I came up with a little acronym to organize this show by. And so we're going to use SPARK. Whenever chasing endless engagement with Instagram stories, just use SPARK. So that stands for send your viewers somewhere, play around with new ideas, ask your audience for feedback, reshare content your followers can relate to, and keep the excitement high. And so that's kind of how we've organized the show today and what we'll be going through.
Very cool. Extra points for making an acronym. I mean, you're gonna have to do that for every show now. I do have a comment, and I think this is great. And I kind of wanted to, I'll ask my question after I pull up here. This is from Allison. She asks, she goes, I know that consistency is key when it comes to the Instagram feed. Should the same rule apply for stories? And I'm interested in this question as well. And also how you ladies use stories. Are you on stories more than you are the feed? I mean, do you have like a ratio you like to use, or what's kind of your secret sauce with stories? Because, you know, some people try to do it every day. Some people, you know, multiple times a day. What are your thoughts on that?
For me, I would say I actually use stories more than I use the feed. I like to do things in the moment, and while I like my images to be polished and clean and kind of, you know, a little bit less raw, I guess I would say, than I think Rebecca and I have talked about in a previous show, I still like to jump on stories, post pictures, post up polls. I wind up doing that a lot more, I think, than the feed. And before Chloe goes into hers, I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit, and I think it's important to underline that both the feed and the stories interact with each other. Mm-hmm. There's not one right way to do it. So you can grab tons of engagement on your feed and supplement with stories, or vice versa. If you're seeing you're not getting a lot of interaction one way or the other on either your feed or your stories, try playing a little bit with how much you post on one or the other and just kind of see what works for you, because there's no one right way to do it, no one secret formula. All of that engagement you get on your feed and in your stories counts in rankings and the algorithm. It's going to make it happy regardless. So you can find that balance that works for you. Very
cool. So Chloe, tell us what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I love everything Kristen said. And I think I wouldn't think of it necessarily as feed or stories, because for me, and we'll get into this, whenever I post on the feed, I'm also in stories at the same time. And I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but stories for me are a nice way to share and connect with my audience when I don't have a feed post planned. Maybe I do that day, but maybe in the morning I'll share something to stories, or in the evening at a time different than I would be posting. Some of that can be organic, or some of that can be something I've planned out in advance as well. You can definitely plan your stories if that's easier for you. So definitely probably stories more, because anytime I'm in the feed, I'm also in stories, and I'll obviously share things to stories in addition to my feed posts as well.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So you gave us this awesome acronym, which is SPARK, which is send your viewers somewhere. So let's go with that. Send your viewers somewhere. Where should they go? Tell us. We're all Twitter.
All of Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what that means, sending your followers somewhere, is so you always want to spell out those next steps, right? Whatever it is that you're trying to get your followers to do, whether it's to engage, tap stickers, answer questions, what have you, or go to your profile if you don't have the link in stories, for example. And this is a big one, right? People want 10,000 followers right off the bat so they can get that link in stories to send their followers to the most obvious places. And that might be a blog post, maybe a link to a product, something like that, an outbound link somewhere. But all is not lost, by the way, if you don't have the link in stories. You can actually send people to the link in bio, same way that you would add in a CTA. And one way that you do that is by actually tagging your profile. And so you want to call out and mention in your stories, like, tap the link in bio for something else to find out more about this, et cetera, et cetera. But make sure that you actually drop in an @user mention of yourself. You tag yourself, because if you've ever noticed, whenever you're going through stories in different search streams, like for locations or hashtags, it's actually really hard. You can't just click on a profile and be taken to their profile. You actually can make that a lot easier on yourself, rather than expecting them maybe to back out of whatever stream they're in or back out of their stories, type in your username and go to your profile. Just tag yourself, and then they can click right on that, go to your profile, and then go right through to your link in bio. So that's one spot.
Don't we have an example of this as well?
Yes, I believe I had just one for myself. Yeah.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah.
So this is just an example in action of what this would look like. So a link in bio to read my guide to kayaking at Lake McMurtry, which is here in Oklahoma. And then you could doodle a little arrow if you like to your username, but clue them in on what to tap on. And then they can go right through and don't have to do any extra heavy lifting to get to the content that they want to see.
This is a great tip, because a lot of us don't have the 10,000 followers for the swipe up. So this is great. So this is a great hack for those people who are maybe just getting started with Instagram and, hey, I want to have people, see my stuff. This is a great workaround. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of that, right, we kind of touched on outbound links to blog posts or products. And I know, Chloe, you use this a little bit more, kind of linking to your blog, et cetera. So do you have any insight on how to do that?
Yeah, I think what you showed was so great, because I'm able to swipe up, but some brands maybe want me to tag their account if I have a partnership, because they want to be able to share it to their stories as well. So the other great thing about tagging is if you tag someone in your stories, that person will get a DM from you with your story, with the story. And they'll be able to just reshare that story that you spent all that time on to their story. Then if someone's looking at their stories and clicks on it, they'll go to your profile and they'll be in your stories to see, and you can introduce yourself to people that wouldn't necessarily look at your account. Maybe they're not your followers or outside of your niche. So I would definitely like to tag brands that I'm partnering with, or sometimes even brands that I just really like. I also love tagging other Instagram users, because I'm always finding really amazing fashion bloggers that I want to promote. And if I share their image in my stories, they also have the opportunity to share and say thank you. And I might meet more people that way, be introduced to more people. So I think tagging people is an amazing idea, and there's so much that you can do with it.
Very cool. So we also have an example of one of yours that you have done. So let's pull that up. And so explain this, what you're doing here.
So this was me. This is something I do every post that I do. I send my story viewers to my feed by sharing my feed post into stories. So whenever you're on your Instagram feed, there's the little arrow that allows you to either send that feed post to someone else in a DM or share it to your own stories. And so depending on what it's about, sometimes I have these little sunglass gifts which kind of move around, which is fun. You can't see them right now, but I try to create some sort of intrigue, like if someone's going through stories, what's going to get them to stop what they're doing, which is continuing to look at my stories and so many other people's stories, to actually go look at my post and see what I'm talking about. So this was something where I had asked my audience about their experience if they'd ever used blue light glasses before. I got quite a bit of interest with that. So I knew that a lot of people were going to want to hear about what my experience had been like using them. So I kind of just told them what the post was going to be about. Sometimes I'll get a GIF and totally cover the picture, and I'll announce like, hey, I have a new post on the feed. And that way they can't see what the post is, but all you have to do is click on the picture, even if you can't really see the full thing. And Instagram will allow you to go from stories into that person's feed to look at their post. So that's a great way. You can also see the analytics of this. So after 24 hours or however long, you can see how many people actually went through to go from the feed post that you shared in stories to your actual feed. And you can see if that's a successful strategy for you. Sometimes it is for me, sometimes it's not. It really just depends.
Very cool, very cool. So I want to pull up some more comments we have from our live audience, and I wanted to say give a shout out to one of our YouTube viewers, Carrie. I know Carrie; she's awesome. She's saying hello from Cleveland. But we do have this one question, and this is oops. Let me see here. Xenia says stories have a limit, only 10 hashtags. So do you guys ever run into that issue where you wish you had? You could put more hashtags in there. I mean, how do you choose what hashtags you want to use for your stories?
I would also just say I'm pretty sure the limit is 11 hashtags, and I will double check that. But so you can use a hashtag, you can use the actual sticker. But if you want to use more hashtags than that, then you do have to use the text option. But I think with hashtag strategy, especially for myself, with stories, it's a smaller blip of content. I mean, you should definitely have a strategy that would push it to search streams where people would find it, more popular hashtags, hopefully find that piece of content, and that's kind of also in line with what your content is, so that they want to, they get that little teaser of whatever your story is, and then they're inspired to follow you more. And so you just have to be a little judicious with the hashtags that you choose, and making sure that it aligns with what's in the picture, so that you're not misleading anybody, or you're not going to get in trouble from Instagram for spamming, right, or anything like that, and just kind of push them through that funnel, right, so that they follow you, see more of your content.
Now, here's a really...
go ahead. Something that, Kristen, I think we were going to talk about later is using multiple story slides for one kind of batch of story content. So people click through so fast, you could really recycle one slide and then add something to the next. Maybe put 10 hashtags on one and then another set of hashtags on the other. And that way you're giving people more access to your different stories. And if they're interested, they'll go back and watch the whole thing.
Here's a really specific question I wanted to pull up for you guys. And it's from Lacey. And she goes, I have about 10 shares a day from people sharing my products. I always thank them and share them to my story. My question is, should I tag the product from my website they shared, or tag the person that shared it again? Is it rude to turn someone's share into a clickable link? That's a great question on etiquette.
First of all, congratulations. You're doing really well. I don't think it's rude at all. I think as a blogger, as an Instagram user, I expect businesses to do that. And it's exciting for me when I'm personally sharing a product I love. I obviously want that person or company to do well. So I would say absolutely, you totally, maybe not every single one, but maybe you share a few of your favorites, and then at the end, I see this quite often, and I think it feels really natural for me. Maybe you share 3 or 4 or 10 people and thank them, thanks so much, and at the end you say, if you want to try it out, here's the link, because you never know who's watching your stories. The same people don't watch them every day. Maybe some people do, but maybe people haven't seen your stories before and would actually really benefit from you sharing your link.
Awesome. So we are we're doing this awesome acronym SPARK, and we've talked about sending your viewers somewhere. And number 2, we're going to be talking about playing around with new ideas, which I love. I think this is great. So, Chloe, so what do you do? What do you mean when you like try out new ideas? I mean, a lot of people, it's scary enough getting on stories. Trying new ideas is even crazier once you find something that works. So what do you mean try new ones? So explain that a little bit.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I started out strictly just as a Instagram style blog. And I quickly learned that, people have more than one interest. I have more than one interest. And so I just kind of started talking about different things that I'm interested in. And some things people respond really well to. Some people they're maybe not super interested in. But overall, I think that my audience really likes to see what I'm interested in and what I like. And so one example of this was I shared that I was watching Gilmore Girls all the way through, and I have a slide for this with my story. I had so many DMs, and it was a really bad story. It was like a horrible quality. I didn't include that one here. Horrible quality picture of my TV in black and white, just said I'm watching Gilmore Girls, and I had more DMs about that than anything, including anything style related. So I kind of gave a tribute to that the next day and asked people if they loved it. But it really showed me a lot that you never know what's going to click with people, and I find that what clicks with me is often what clicks with people because, or with my audience, because they're kind of getting to know me through my account, whether I'm a business or blogger or individual. People follow you for so many different reasons, and it's important to share a lot of different aspects of yourself, especially if that, one day your business pivots, or if you decide to make a change, like it doesn't come as a total shock to people. And I think stories is the best place to do this, because if you fail, it's not going to affect the algorithm in as much of a negative way as maybe a feed post that doesn't do as well might.
That's a great point. So I love the idea of actually, letting people know a little bit more about you, and, it doesn't have to be all business all the time. I mean, I think stories, people really want to see the behind the scenes. Like you said, your Gilmore Girls thing. I've done things where I've showed some of the stuff that I've carved with wood carving stuff, and has nothing to do with my business, but people really like that stuff. And so I think peeling back, the curtain, not too far. You want to keep the kimono closed a little bit, but you want to show them a little bit about your personality and what's going on there. So I think that's some great things for you. What about you, Kristen? How do you kind of play around with new ideas?
My favorite way to play around with new ideas is actually with designs. And so I've talked a little bit before, and I actually use them very frequently. Easel, I'll shout them out. They have beautiful story templates for like a more polished look, or something I'm trying to achieve with like a really pretty story or a pretty. There's also features kind of hidden away in Instagram stories itself. And so a couple of examples of that are like in the pen tools that you have, right, like your fine point marker, which is just, you can do solid doodles. And you may have seen in the story beforehand, the little arrows really squiggly and fine tipped. I actually have a stylus to do all of my arrows and squiggles and doodles. And so a lot of pens will have like kind of a bulkier stylus tip at the end, but whenever you get a really fine tip one, and I'll hold that up so you can see, it's magnetic at the top, so you have a lot more control. You can like sign your stories, add your signature, do all kinds of little doodles, and it's just really fun. So that's something that I like to play with a lot. I find doodling very relaxing on my stories for some reason. And then another example is rainbow text or hidden features like that. And so I actually do have a tutorial for this, which we posted on our Instagram stories for Tailwind, which was a step-by-step tutorial of how to get that rainbow text, which is a little complicated and it takes a little bit of coordination. Oh, that's That's me.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, so this is just an example of the rainbow text, and this is actually saved on our Instagram stories under tutorials, and it is also part of a blog post that we recently wrote called 8 Instagram story tricks to dazzle your followers, and we can drop the link for that in the comments, but that goes over a bunch of different features like the overlays that are hidden within the app, and I believe there's that slide of me was an example of that, so we can show that in a minute. Okay. And then just doing little like block letters is super simple, and using the eraser tool to like reveal different parts of your image and kind of tease new products or new posts, things like that. And so those are just, I really love the design aspect of it, and just playing around with different fonts, different effects, maybe adding a drop shadow to my text in Instagram, which is basically just doing 2 layers of text in a contrasting color and offsetting one slightly. It creates a shadow effect. Super easy, but it looks really striking. And then for the overlays, if we can pull that up, I'll just show you. If you didn't know that these were hidden in, and I'm an outfit repeater, I'm sorry, I'm wearing the same shirt in that story that I'm wearing now. But in the pen tools, that first one, the fine point one, you can select your color and then hold down in the middle of the screen, and it will do maybe a solid background. And then the highlight pen tool, which is the next one over with kind of the angled tip, if you do the same thing, you get this translucent overlay. Do it again, a more opaque version, and then a third time you get a solid one. So that's kind of tucked away in the pen tools.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So
that's one of my favorite ones to use, making your background whatever color you like.
Yes.
So we've got a lot of people asking about that stylus. So we want to make sure we'll drop in the stylus, where to get one of those in the comments. But this may be, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Tailwind tips. There's a couple of them. Dustin Bean just dropped one in there. So to be entered in the drawing for the selfie light. But you know what? We ought to look at maybe getting some of these styluses and giving those away. That would be a cool thing to do. So stay tuned. But for now, we're giving away this. So Tailwind tips in the comments, please. So I want to pull up this question from, well, it's not a question, it's a comment from Lacey, and I think this is a great comment. She goes, I get the most engagement when I share my failures. If something is going wrong, I share it, and people love to see and comment. I think it helps people know we are all in trouble and not always Instagram perfect. Yeah. So I just think it's really great showing the behind the scenes stuff and being real. I've even seen some studies where they're showing that, you know, people are really not wanting those curated, really pretty pictures. They want to see you raw and out in the world, and I think that's really, really cool. So awesome tips, ladies.
I think that maybe even started because of stories, because you know, before stories, Instagram was picture perfect, and then stories kind of allowed people to share behind the curtain, and now people want that on their feed too because they like it so much.
Very cool. Very cool. So we've done the first 2. Now we're into the A of our Spark little tip there. So it's ask your audiences for feedback. So Kristen, we want engagement on Instagram. So what are some of the best ways to ask our audience, you know, to actually get them to respond and not just do like an emoji back at us? We want them to like actually engage with us. So what are some tips for doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram stories, I feel like, is built for engagement, for easy engagement. If you kind of think about it, whenever maybe you're scrolling your feed, right? You're looking at feed posts, and then you have to make the decision of, I'm going to like this. Okay, that's not too hard. I'm going to comment on this. What am I going to say? Like how, you know, there's a whole thought process there, and people honestly have to decide whether the content is interesting enough, engaging enough that they want to actually do that. And I feel like Instagram stories really takes away that extra step, because you have all of these stickers and tools to get people to engage with you quickly and in a fun way. It's really just tapping a sticker, tapping a button or an option. And so a couple different stickers I want to call out for that is quizzes, for example. You can use the quiz feature. There does have to be one right answer, but you can always even say to your audience that the right answer isn't necessarily the right answer. It's your vote for something, but you can use it as an extended poll. You could tease products. You could use it to have your followers kind of get to know you a little bit by like a guessing game of, like three lies and one truth, or vice versa, or a game like that. You can also use the question sticker, which I think is really popular, to have people ask you anything that's on their minds, or you can kind of direct it maybe in your niche or in your industry, like ask me anything about Instagram stories, and people can really get their burning questions answered in an easy way. You could also use questions. It doesn't have to be a question. I once used it to unfortunately my honeymoon got canceled just because of family illness. And so I was asking for a new honeymoon location, and I got a ton of different suggestions, some weird ones, but lots of different options to choose from, which was really fun. So it doesn't always have to be a question, just letting you know that it is just a small comment box, basically, where people can offer a phrase, a word, feedback, a question, and you can interact with that however you want to. And then polls is another one. And I think Chloe is like the queen of polls. So I will let her go into that. Yeah,
I do want to, before we get into Chloe's thing, I do want to bring up this point from Bobby and Melanie here. She goes, reposting people's replies to question always gets my stories going. And she had that as a tailwind tip. But that's a great tip right there, Bobby, Melanie. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, Chloe, take it away. What are some of your tips?
Before we get into polls, I want to say that I think people are less threatened by answering a question than they would be sending you a DM. Like sending a DM is a little bit more of an extra step, like you were saying, Kristen. And I think just writing their answer to a question, they don't necessarily expect you're going to respond. So when they see that you've reposted it or responded to them directly, I think it's kind of the extra step there. But yeah, I love polls. Polls are definitely my favorite, my most successful way to get engagement on stories, because it's so easy. Just like you said, it's just like a like. In fact, it's better than a like because they only have to tap once, not twice. So this one, I just asked, this was a feed post that I shared, and then I reshared it in stories and asked, if people would rather have the dress in orange or in black, and orange won, but it was interesting to see how many people responded and kind of gave me a feel for who was interested in that post that I had shared earlier in the day.
Very cool. And then you have this one as well. So explain this one, what you're doing here.
So I did a clothing challenge called Color My Closet, and in advance to the challenge, I set a countdown on Instagram, and people were able to save the countdown. So Instagram gave them a reminder that the challenge was going to start, or they could reshare the countdown to their stories, which told other people about the challenge. So it was a great way to kind of connect with more people and get everyone unified that was going to participate. I got to see who had saved the challenge or how many people had saved the challenge. And I think there's so many ways that businesses could be using countdowns. Maybe you have a product launch or anything where you want someone to be able to sign up to get a reminder. It's a fantastic tool. And then you get to see these amazing confetti sparkles when it's time for the countdown to start. And Kristen, you used one of these about our Facebook Live today.
Oh, yes, I did.
Sorry, you're like, did I?
I didn't know. I want to know if I get the confetti sparkles, though.
I think if you looked at it now, because it already started, then you would probably get the confetti sparkles.
That's very cool. I do want to pull up this great comment while you guys are talking, while you guys are getting sparkled on.
So much fun.
This is from Erica. She goes, I think this is great. She goes, wow, I'm learning so much. Thank you. I literally posted a story of me watching this and have tons of direct messages just from my own following trying to get to this live video. Well, thanks so much, Erica, for sharing the live video. And anybody who's joined from Erica's post, let us know in the comments below. That would be awesome to find out. But it's very... Engagement on Instagram is amazing. It's just it's awesome. That's a great comment. Thank you for sharing that to us, Erica. That's awesome. So, are there certain polls, Chloe, that you use that work better for you? That you like? It's kind of your go-to poll that you like to use.
My go-to is like if I have maybe 2 ways to style something, I'll ask people what their favorite is. Everyone loves having an opinion about something.
Right. They do.
True.
It's very true. That's social media in a nutshell right there. So, so we've asked our audience for feedback, and we're doing our Spark acronym. And so we've talked about sending your viewer somewhere, playing around with new ideas, ask your audience for feedback, and now we're to the R, reshare content your followers can relate to. So how can we share content, and what content seems to relate, with our followers? What are some of your tips for doing that, Kristen? How do you first of all, how do you know what's relating? Is there like a signal that you get other than engagement, or do you base it all in engagement? Like, okay, I know they're really doing this. They really like, say for example, polls. Should I, just brainstorm and have every other week do polls? I mean, how do you come up with what is going to be good for your audience that they really, really like?
Yeah, I think sometimes there are a few more clear indicators than others, especially if you operate within a certain niche or industry. Chances are followers on your account are probably going to like content related to that, or that makes sense. Something maybe that you've talked about before, something that ties in kind of to your content that exists. But I think to Chloe's point from before, it really is like a testing ground. I think there's some hard lines. You shouldn't reshare anything that anyone would be offended by or find inappropriate, but it's feeling out your audience. And there's an element of that, I think, that exists in stories that maybe doesn't in your feed. Your feed, everything lives forever unless you delete it. Your stories last for 24 hours. If you repost a funny meme and nobody liked it, then, I mean, mental note, don't share things like that again.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Chloe, what about you? How do you know what, is really, and I guess as your audience grows, sometimes what really resonates with them can change. And I have a feeling sometimes it can be seasonal. So how do you find, great content for your followers?
For stories, I try to kind of center it around what I'm doing on my feed at the time, because then I'm getting a better idea of if that's working or if people are liking it. But again, like Kristen was sharing earlier, it's really just it's exploratory, and I can share things about myself that I might not feel is worth a full Instagram caption, and then see how people connect with that, and then maybe eventually I'll realize, oh, they do really enjoy when I talk about this, so I'm gonna share more about it in a caption, or even maybe do a blog post about it. Just kind of exploring, and sometimes I'll have things where, people don't respond, or very few people respond, and I'm like, okay, mental note, didn't work, but then I'll do it again 3 months later and people will be interested. So I would just say, never give up on stories being an area for you to really get a pulse on your audience. And I think the people who watch your stories most consistently are the people who are in your feed, liking and commenting on your content as well. So you kind of have a test group of people that you can be getting feedback from as you grow.
I think those are great tips. So you also, I think, if you find something that works, you don't want to just do that and just grind it into the ground. Because I've seen some people they're getting engaged with something, and then that's all they do for the rest of the 2 weeks before I mute them. So I think there's a example.
Watch out.
You want to find out what works, but you don't want to kill it by overuse, is what I guess I'm saying.
Yeah, and Chloe, you repost pretty frequently, right? Different brands and maybe some like users and things that maybe tag you, right? Do you have like kind of a method for picking what you repost, what you're tagged in, or what you see?
Well, for me, stories aren't as, I guess, easy for me. I'm not someone who does a lot of self-videoing, even though I enjoy watching it and it does really well. It's not something that I necessarily devote the time to every day. So I want to make sure my stories are active, and I want to make sure, I'm engaged with my community. So just the easiest way for me is as I'm going through my Instagram feed and I think to myself, oh, that's a really cool outfit, or wow, I love what this person's talking about. I'll share that to my stories and tag the person and then kind of give my little feedback. And then I really also try to remember to go back and comment, because obviously I liked their feed post. I really want them to get better engagement. And so I think we think a lot of things when we're looking at other people's posts, like, I like that, that makes me think of this or whatever. And so I really try to practice when I'm in the app. Everything I'm looking at and doing, I want to kind of add some permanence to it. So I'll try to share things to stories, and that way other people that I am following or find on the Explore page, they get visibility through my account, and then my audience also has more content to look through on my stories. So it's kind of works really well for everyone and helps with building community.
Very cool. So we are getting to the end of our Spark acronym. And so we've talked about the S is send your viewers somewhere. P is play around with new ideas. A is ask your audience for feedback. We just talked about R, reshare content your followers can relate to. And now we're at K, which is keep the excitement high. So how do we keep the excitement high? Because, nothing's worse and nothing gets you muted faster, at least for me, is boring, not exciting stories. Or
too many.
Yes.
I'm just realizing now that Jeff follows me. Like, I wonder if I'm muted.
No, you're not muted. I have to keep an eye on you because you just never know what's going to happen. So I'm
feeling a little threatened right now.
You're right. You should. It's scary stuff.
I will actually keep excitement high. On this, I think my first jumping off point on keeping excitement high is always looking for new opportunities to do something fun. I'll call out before we went live on this, right? Yesterday, I reshared a this or that quiz. We've historically never really done that on our Tailwind account, but I thought it'd be fun to make it just a cute little stories quiz, and a ton of people engaged, and we reshared their content, and that was just like a really fun, easy thing to do. And then this example, if you saw our account over the weekend, we were tagged by someone in an ad for our hashtag finder tool, saying, Tim Tebow, maybe this can help you with your hashtag. And so he and his fiance are getting married and cannot find a hashtag. They have like no inspiration for it. So they were asking for feedback from their followers. And so we designed a cute little wedding hashtag game. Just ask people to vote on their favorite option. And then because it was football themed, we had like little playoffs and then a winner. And the funny thing about this was Demi, his fiance, actually voted in the poll. The hashtag she chose didn't win. So
what to do?
Information to us.
But I feel like since she is the bride to be, that one will probably.
There's a little bit more weight on that. Yeah,
carries a little bit more influence. I don't know, but So that is just an example of a random opportunity that was fun, that fell in our lap, that is just something unexpected. We were like, why not just play with this a little bit? No harm, no foul. And it was really awesome to see them interact with that poll or that quiz and play around with it. So that's a great example of just keeping an eye out. Another one I think is it's really important to decide what your strengths are and then play to them. So whether or not that's you're knowledgeable in your field or your niche or whatever it is, and you're constantly sharing tutorials or little blurbs where people can actually take something away from it, and it's a huge value add, right? Our rainbow text tutorial got a ton of feedback, and people really loved that. It was pretty easy to make, and it was something that not a lot of people know inherently what to do because it's kind of hidden. I mean, you have to read about it to know it's there. That was amazing. And people loved that. They shared it and they were tagging us in pictures where they actually used the rainbow text. So that was something as Tailwind, we really pride ourselves on our knowledge and our ability to teach you stuff about Instagram, right? That's why we're all here. So that was a great example of it. If you are usually like the funny friend out of all of your friends and you're the one who constantly has people in stitches cracking jokes, share funny things, keep it exciting, keep people laughing, just play to, your strengths about who you are as a person, what you do, and just keep people excited in the content that you produce on stories, just playing to what you already do well. And then I think we've kind of already gone over this is give your followers a way to interact. That's kind of exciting them to them, right? If they vote in a poll or they answer questions, they ask you questions. And then if you reward and reinforce that by sharing it or by calling it out in your stories, which I think Chloe is really good at doing, that's like instant gratification. That's a positive reinforcement that they should engage with you because you're going to reward them for it. You are listening and you are paying attention. And then another one is just, I think maybe this one is from you, Chloe, but it's using hashtags on your stories. Did you want to comment on that? Mm-hmm.
Well, if you use hashtags in your stories and you do use as many as possible, something that I recently saw someone do or talk about, I wish I could remember who, but they made their hashtag text the same color as their background. And so they were getting themselves seen in all these hashtags, but their users weren't constantly just seeing 1,000 hashtags on every single story that they had because they did what you did in that video that you shared of yourself by changing the paint color to or you changed the color of the background. So they basically did that. They got the font to be the same color as the background of their story and hid that there. I thought that was a really unique idea if you don't want to spam people.
That's very sneaky.
That is actually one of the tips, by the way, in the 8 Instagram story tricks is, I think in the video example I did in there, I just changed the font to the sky, like the color of the sky. So you probably got it. Yeah, it was me. But you can hide those hashtags in plain view and it doesn't clutter up your image, but you're still showing up in those search streams, which is a really neat trick. So that's awesome to call out.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out too the genius behind what you were doing with the Tim Tebow post was that that's Mike Alton, who was in here was watching with us. He has this term called newsjacking, where he writes blog articles, like on stuff that just broke in the news, and doing the same thing with stories like you did with this. They were searching for a hashtag, and you jumped right on it, and you created this thing. That's a great way to get engagement, and you don't have to. Think really hard. There's tons of like social media calendars out there where it's like, it's National Cat Day, and then you can jump on that when you see a lot of stories do that. But anything where you can like be trending or being, top of mind in the feed is a great way to get some engagement with other people with your story. So I thought that was really genius. So we have teased like in our posts and all this stuff that we have a special that you have been teasing, to the giveaway at the end of this thing. So tell us what this is. What is this challengey thing you're going to do?
Yes. So we are actually starting a challenge. It is the Instagram Story Challenge. And we've created an offer around this, a download, where we essentially give you 20 full story prompts. And that includes the actual prompt for what you should post about, any design elements that you should include. And it also, we throw in some of the effects that we've talked about today, right? Like using the translucent overlays or the solid backgrounds, things like that, using different stickers, using GIFs. And actually, Chloe helped with several of these. So it was a joint effort. With our marketing team, everybody kind of pitched in, and you'll see that in the download. Everybody created stories for Tailwind and tutorials of how to do it. And so it's a full resource if you really want to get started on stories, but you're just not sure where to start. You just don't know. You don't have the inspiration yet. We've included an end-to-end story starter prompt for 5 days a week. And so here's how the challenge will work. You can go ahead and download by following this bit.ly link. So bit.ly at IG-stories-starters, all lowercase. You can follow that. You'll get the download of 20 story prompts. And then we will send you an email every Monday for 4 weeks. The challenge starts on September 30th, so that's when the first one will come. We will send you an email with the 5 story starter prompts that are in the guide, and then we'll include one bonus one. And so as you're going through, once the challenge starts, you're going to post your story starter, whatever the prompt is, whatever the design elements are, take them, make them your own, post your story, and then make sure to tag us on Instagram, so at Tailwind App. And then each time that you tag us in each story starter, it's going to be one entry into a drawing for a free year of Tailwind.
Whew.
And yes.
That's
and
awesome.
for
I'll have to enter.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. And we're also partnering with Wave Video on this story starter and this challenge. So the third week we're calling Wave Week, and our participants will get instructions on that third week of how to kind of participate more in detail in this. But essentially the winner of that 1 week will be awarded, I believe, 3 free months of their pro version. And then every participant in the challenge also gets a discount code for 1 free month. So we have a ton of prizes, a ton of perks for participating in this. We're really excited about it. We'll be jumping on our stories in Tailwind every day because, to be honest, we haven't had a really unified story strategy, or haven't really engaged with our stories the way that we should. And so we thought we were our best testers, and that's kind of where this came from. That's where it started. So we'll be right there along with you, making these story starters, posting them up, and then resharing some of your folks that you're posting every day. And so it'll be really, really exciting, and we just can't wait to start it. So that will start on September 30th, but you can download the guide now and kind of prepare yourself a little bit, get everything you need in place to answer those prompts and post up those stories.
Very cool. So if you're listening to us on the podcast, it's bit.ly/IG-story-starters, and that's all lowercase. So it's bit.ly/IG-story-starters. So join this. This is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see all the cool stuff that people are going to be creating. And man, there's a bunch of prizes in this package. So you guys want to make sure you do this and get ready for September 30th. I mean, it's going to be, I get to see like all these people running, towards their story. I mean, it's just going to be amazing. All these people are going to be doing it. So it's going to be awesome. So thanks so much for joining us today. And if you're watching on the replay, go ahead and continue to drop in your Tailwind tips as you've listened to some of the great stuff that we talked about. We had the acronym SPARK, and that stands for, S stands for send your viewer somewhere. P is play around with new ideas. A is ask your audience for feedback. R is reshare content your followers can relate to. And K is keep the excitement high. And you can do that by joining our challenge that starts on September 30th at bit.ly/IG-story-starters. That's a mouthful, but it's going to be awesome. Ladies, what do you think, out of all the tips that you gave today, what would you think would be the lowest hanging fruit for people to do to really up their stories game? Kristen, I'll start with you.
I think, for me, I think playing around with new ideas, whatever that means to you, is the most accessible. And I think we need to kind of break ourselves out of the mold of thinking that just because, a successful account does it this certain way and either shoots live videos of themselves, but some people are petrified of. I shy away from just jumping on my phone and talking. That's just not how I like to communicate with my followers or with people. Barrier of it, but we don't have perfect. Of other accounts who are successful are doing it. You figure out new ideas and introducing new contents and just trying things on for you, whether it's playing around with design. Once we feature in that blog, we kind of talked about here, whether it's doodle, which I'm kind of I have this. It's just really fun, or whether it's seeing out new ideas. Or just trying out different ways of doing with your followers. That's low-hanging fruit, because it's just the only thing stopping you there is if you remove that mental block and you just decide, I'm going to experiment with stories, I'm going to see what works, I'm going to try things. If I mess up or if it doesn't go well, it's not the end of the world. It disappears after 24 hours anyway. If you break yourself out of that mental block, I think that will open up so much for you in terms of inspiration.
Very cool. Chloe, what about you? What would you say the thing that people really need to focus on if they just had to do one thing to kind of get the ball rolling?
I would pick what works best for me, which is polls. And I would say that if polls are the low-hanging fruit, it's pretty simple to think of two options, even something like, which of my last two posts did you like better, and having screenshots of both of those for people to decide. It feeds into my overall idea that, Instagram is an amazing tool to connect with people. And the more ways you can do that, the better. I think stories are uniquely positioned to be an interactive communal tool, and there's so many ways for you to connect with your audience. So if you need kind of the tangible to do, I would say polls. Try to do maybe 3 polls a week after you're done with our amazing Instagram story challenge, of course. But overall, just if you're like, I don't know what to do, or you need a why behind what you're doing, community. You want your audience to be a part of your community, supporting your business, and your customers to be in your community. Whoever your audience is, it's all a community. So however you can try to interact with people and allow them to be a part of the experience, the better.
Awesome. Those are great tips. Thanks you guys for putting this together. You did such a great job getting us all focused on what we need to do with the Spark acronym. That was awesome. And everybody, don't forget to join our challenge. It starts September 30th at bit.ly/IG-story-starters. And with that, we thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time. See you later. Bye now.
Bye.